Thank you, Dr. Parker. Before we begin our next panel, I just wanted to make a correction to the record. Glenn Jenkins, when he responded to the question about facilities converting from HF to sulfuric acid, thought that the question was, are they looking to? And so he thought that, yes, there are many facilities that are looking to change, and not that many, in fact, had changed. So we just wanted to make sure that the record was cleared on that matter. And so having said that, we're now ready to begin with our last panelist before lunch. And unfortunately, I need to take out my glasses, but let me proceed. So our first speaker will be Chief Cerna. He served with the City of Torrance's Fire Department and as chief since January of last year with nearly 25 years of experience in the department. He's responsible for overseeing all areas of the fire department, and prior to his appointment as chief, he worked for 7 years with the department's fire marshal, ensuring the local Torrance Municipal Code was updated as related to the California Fire Code. And after Chief Cerna, we have Fire Chief Bill Jones with the Los Angeles County Fire Health Hazmat Division, the LA County CUPA. Chief Jones works for the County Fire Department and chief of its Hazardous Materials Division and Health. He's also been involved with the hazardous materials since the early 80s. He's a graduate in the Environmental Occupational Health Program from Cal State University of Northridge. And he's also a member of the Interagency Refinery Task Force and founding member of the California Unified Program Agency Forum Board, where he serves as the issue coordinator for enforcement, emergency response, and legislation, among others. So please join me in welcoming Chief Cerna.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I understand we are the last panel before lunch, so I don't have a formal presentation, so I'll keep my comments slightly brief. Good afternoon, Your Honorable Body, citizens and community at large. My name is Martin Cerna. I am proud and humbled to be the fire chief of the great city of Torrance. My job is to provide a highly trained, highly motivated, highly qualified fire department capable of operating safely and effectively at the scene of any incident, and to provide the community and the citizens with the highest level of service possible, a fire department that is proactive in the prevention of an incident, a department that provides a sense of safety and peace. It is this reason I am disheartened. I am disheartened when I read a mother's or teacher's story of how scared they are to let their kids outside in fear of the refinery. Disheartened when city workers and business owners are afraid to come to work. I'm disheartened when firefighters come to me expressing their frustration about misinformation being shared, adding to some of the frustration currently we're experiencing. But I am encouraged by these first responders and other regulatory partners like Chief Bill Jones, Paul Pinn, Kay Lawrence, Clyde Trombetis, and Wayne Nastry, because they, along with their teams, are seeking opportunities to have businesses operate safely and to ensure our citizens, reassure our citizens we are seeking proactive solutions. So I thank each of you. I would like to reinforce our absolute number one focus and promise to this city is to keep our citizens safe. We are here today because there is some confusion and questions as to how safe we really are living and working in a city that hosts a refinery. We as Public Safety Department have been given the responsibility to evaluate the efficiency, the effectiveness of the safety measures that have been put in place by the court by the way of the consent decree. We are here as an independent third-party entity. We have nothing to gain by providing biased information on either side. My decisions are not based on a profit line or an agenda, but on the mere safety of the community. This has been our charge for over 100 years. Everyone who has worn the Torrance Fire Department patch has never lost sight of that promise, that commitment to our mission, then, not now, and not in the future. In the 1980s, after several incidents, the Torrance Fire Department took lead for the city against Mobil Oil. They were led by Fire Chief Scott Adams. Chief Adams' commitment to the safety of this community during that period was unwavering. That leadership team was relentless at their task, knowing what was at stake. Chief Adams reminded them that daily. The fire service has a history of learning from past conflagrations, such as the Triangle Sweat Waste Fire, where 146 people lost their lives, or the Coconut Grove Fire, where 492 people lost their lives. It is due to these tragic events the fire service has required buildings to be better engineered, developed educational and outreach programs to inform the public what to do in the event of a fire, and finally, enforcement of those new safety standards. It was this attitude that took us through the consent decree years and where we stand today. As a public safety servants, we are here and we have a vested interest in the safety of the refinery. I have personally responded to major incidents at this refinery, so I know firsthand the dangers of a refinery and what the dangers are at a refinery. I have a commitment to ensure we never have to respond to another incident again. As first responders, we head into the emergency, and if you are not safe, we are also not safe. Over the past several months, we have attempted to clarify, substantiate, and educate the community on the many safety systems, devices that have been put into place to lessen the dangers of the alkylation unit and the release of MHF into the community. Systems that have been in place for close to 25 years with the result of no off-site impacts. Systems that have exceeded the industry standards. But the information we could share was limited due to confidentiality and proprietary agreements, which truly created a great deal of frustration, not only for the community, but for me personally. These agreements were put into place by the court by way of Judge Petrus. Our inability to share the science and development of this technology continued to increase the frustrations for our community. The issues the refinery is currently experiencing are not related to the alkylation unit, but other areas of the refinery. This is why we issued a notice of violation that we will require the refinery to perform a comprehensive review of all their units and a review of their process safety management. If any deficiencies are noted, they will be required to abate immediately. This inspection began last week in partnership with Chief Jones, and I thank him and his team for assisting us in this endeavor. But after last Tuesday's council meeting and our workshop, I was encouraged because I saw a commitment from not only the refinery, but the community and a willingness to continue to work together. Since our workshop and our meeting, I understand PBF has been authorized to share more of the science and the research that went into the current MHF alkylation system. We finally get an opportunity to share and see what we've been saying as far as research that was done in the 90s. So I'm excited about that opportunity to share that with this community so that we can get the true story of true story that was shared. To be clear, I am not here to be clear. I nor anybody in the fire department is saying MHF is safe. Nor are we saying sulfuric acid is safe. Both are very bad acids. Both sulfuric acid and MHF pose dangers, and that is why we have taken a very active role in the development of the new regulatory refinery regulations. Once the new regulations are adopted into law, it is my intent to issue a notice to the refinery to conduct a hazard analysis with a focus on safer technologies. By going sideways and not forward towards safer technologies, in my opinion, is a step backwards. As your fire department, our top 3 priorities are life safety, environmental protection, and property conservation. We still and always will maintain these top priorities. This has been our charge and our commitment to you. So I encourage and hope to instill a level of confidence to those mothers and fathers and workers as we move into the future to know that not only the fire department but other regulatory agencies have taken this matter very seriously, and we will continue to move forward with developing practical solutions for the quality of your lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have one question that I just want to make sure that you can possibly clarify. You said you are prohibited by disclosing certain information by judge. As it relates to that of a consent decree or something that was entered into by your department or your city that prevented you from being able to disclose that information?
Correct. There were some proprietary agreements and trade agreements that were signed by the city at the time, as well as Mobile at the time, so we were not able to share fully a lot of the research and science that was done for the modified HF that went behind it, as well as the comparisons to sulfuric acid alkylation and MHF. What I can say is that now that that report, yes?
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and during that period, that's when it was established that MHF proved to be, at that time, safer, just as safe, if not as safer than sulfuric acid. And that's what the report states.
Has those restrictions been lifted now?
It is my understanding, just as of this past Thursday, that PBF has been working diligently with Honeywell, as well as ExxonMobil Research and Development, to have some of that information released. And I believe they are planning to go out into the community to present that information so that you can clearly see that some of the information that is being shared is actually, because I've had the ability to look at the reports, where it actually looks like we're comparing apples and oranges. And you will definitively be able to see where that is.
Any questions by anyone else?
Yeah, I do, but I'm going to wait till the other gentleman finishes.
Okay, Mr. Nastri, go right ahead.
Our next speaker is Chief Jones. Chief?
Thank you, board members. Thank you for having me here. As was said earlier, my name is Bill Jones. I'm Chief of the Health Hazmat Division in the LA County Fire Department, and hopefully I'm going to help clarify the role that we have in this picture, because obviously Torrance has a fire department and we are LA County Fire Department, so how do we intermix and how do we work together? You've heard a couple of comments about CUPA. I'm going to hopefully try and help everybody understand what the unified program is, because we have multiple layers of regulatory programs, starting with the feds, then to the state, and then to the local agencies. And in California, we have a very heavy involvement of local agencies in regulating hazardous materials handlers and hazardous waste generators. So with that, I'll also tell you how our structure within the fire department interacts with Torrance, and also our involvement in some of the statewide projects and some of the local efforts to work with the different agencies to make refineries safer. So first and foremost, when we talk about the Unified Program, or CUPAs, everybody's heard about CUPAs, and what the heck are we? Well, in the early 1990s, legislation was passed in the legislature to consolidate the management of hazardous materials programs in the state of California. And basically, there were hundreds of agencies, both health and fire agencies, implementing various programs within California that deal with hazardous materials and hazardous waste oversight. So the CUPA came together under SB 1082, and it took 6 programs and consolidated into one, if you will, umbrella. And within that umbrella, we have other agencies that play a role, and in the city of Torrance, they are known as a participating agency under the Los Angeles County Fire CUPA. The CUPA means Certified Unified Program Agency. That means that Cali PA certified us to do what we do. They looked at staffing, they looked at educational requirements, they looked at resources, they looked at all these things in a 2-year certification process that we went through in order to do what we do at the local level. At the same time, we also embarked on contracts and agreements with participating agencies that implement 1 or 2 or perhaps 3 of the program elements within their cities. And Torrance is, in fact, one of those entities that implements the hazardous materials, what you've heard before, CalARP, and the underground storage tank programs in the city of Torrance. So we have a very tight-knit relationship with the city of Torrance, as well as the other PAs and the other CUPAs in LA County, and we meet frequently and we talk frequently, and we do a lot of effort to coordinate what we do. So if you look at the programs that are within the Unified Program, I've listed out some of the programs, or the 6 programs that were brought together under the CUPA Cabana. And this CUPA structure incorporates all the programs that you see in the way that I just described. You have some CUPAs in the state that do all the programs. In LA County, we're blessed with probably one of the more complex CUPAs, because we implement all the CUPAs in some of the jurisdictions. We implement parts of it in other jurisdictions. LA County Fire actually goes into Orange County, also in the city of La Habra, as a participating agency. So LA County Fire is both a CUPA and a participating agency, and there are different agreements with the different programs that you see listed up there that we are or aren't involved, depending on what city or what jurisdiction you're talking about. So just real quickly, the programs that we're talking about is the Hazardous Waste Generation Program. These are the generators that generate hazardous waste, so we oversee those facilities. We also are involved with what's called on-site treatment under what's called the tiered permitting. It's not a full permit like the state DTSC has as a RCRA facility, also known as a TSDF, that involve treatment, storage, and disposal activities. These are typically the larger facilities. I think one of the questions earlier was what does DTSC do, what does EPA do, and now what does the local CUPA do? And the fact of the matter is that all 3 entities are in some of these large facilities. So Refinery is typically a RCRA facility, so there's going to be a DTSC presence, and they also generate waste and do activities that we regulate. So all 3 entities will be in the refineries and other facilities doing their particular program elements. The other one is the above-ground storage tanks, underground storage tank, hazmat release response plans and inventories. This is a program where every chemical facility in the state is required to report their inventory of chemicals and to put together business plans and contingencies in the event of a release. And another component of that is the right to know. So the information is required to be available to the public or anybody who wants that information on what chemicals are at each facility. The next one is the CalARP facility. These are the high-risk facilities, and they're not only refineries, but they're also the chlorine handlers, the ammonia handlers, the facilities that in the event of a release could have serious impacts on the public at large. And the last program is Uniform Fire Code provisions specific to some of the hazardous materials inventory information. All 6 of those programs, in one form or another, with the CUPA or the PA, are implemented statewide throughout the state. So what does a unified program do? Well, under that Copacabana that I mentioned, we consolidate the invoicing, so each of the entities aren't out invoicing the businesses. So when we have a CUPA, they send out one invoice for not only the CUPA cost, but also for the PA costs. We consolidate the permits and issue the permits. We have one inspection and enforcement plan, so there's a process that everybody has to go through in order to put together a plan and also to implement it. And then as a CUPA, we do something that is similar to what Cal EPA does with us, and that is we go through a performance review once every 3 years to ensure that we're still meeting the certification standards that I mentioned earlier that we have to go through in order to become a CUPA. We do the same thing with our PAs. There's a performance review that occurs once every 3 years for all of our PAs. In Los Angeles County, there's 8 CUPAs, so a lot of CUPAs. The vast majority of CUPAs in the state of California, or the vast majority of counties in the state of California, there's one CUPA, and that's it. There's a few like us that have a multitude of CUPAs, but we're probably one of the more complex. In addition to the city of Torrance, we have 9 other participating agencies that work under our agreement, under our CUPA umbrella, if you will, to do the things that I just mentioned in terms of the permitting and the invoicing and the inspection enforcement. And as you can see on the slide, Torrance Fire Department does those 3 program elements, including the CalArt program, which is something that is of extreme interest at this point. In the Health Hazmat Division, there's many different ways that our agency can touch the various activities or the various businesses in the city of Torrance, and I wanted to just point that out. So not only do the operations side of the Torrance Fire Department respond to a release or an event that might occur at a refinery or any chemical facility, we also would respond, and we bring sort of the technical expertise to the refinery and do a number of things that I'll go over in a minute. We also have a very robust inspection center or inspection section. The office for Torrance is in Lomita. We have inspectors going out to all the facilities in Torrance to do haz waste and tiered permitting inspections. We also have a special operations section, and this is where we have site mitigation work that's done, and some of that work is done in Torrance. We also have a very good investigations unit that investigates criminality. They also investigate other things that could lead to other types of enforcement action. And then the CalArt facility, or the CalArt program, which, as I mentioned, the City of Torrance Fire Department implements. So, as I mentioned, in the City of Torrance, we touch their businesses in a number of different ways. In the emergency operations section, we've responded to all the major releases. We have a 24/7 response capability. We're involved with identifying unknowns. We do monitoring similar to what the SCAQMD does for air releases. We also get heavily involved with declaring the site safe for public reentry. We're kind of a unique entity in LA County Fire Department in that all of my staff are deputy health officers. So we have health officer authority in the fire department through the deputy health officer status. That's one of the key roles that we play when we have these releases, and we work very closely with the City of Torrance Fire Department in constructing messages to the public or in determining what needs to be done or what has to occur in order to mitigate a particular release. The other thing that we do is and not so much with the refinery because it's obvious, but in many of these incidents, we identify the responsible parties so we can issue notices and we can order corrective action. One of the things that we found is very useful for these large events that might occur at a refinery is the coordination of responding environmental type of agencies, and AQMD is one of them, as well as others that might come to bear at a refinery release. And you know, when you're working within incident command structure, those folks that are not familiar with fire operations and incident command, they're a little bit out of water in terms of how to integrate and how to deal with an incident response. This is one of the things that we learned from the Richmond fire, that there was a few places where we needed to beef that up. So we've been playing an active role with coordinating some of those environmental type of agencies. If you look at some of the regulations that are coming out, it's going to mandate that occur, and it's a positive thing. You know, whether it's Cal OSHA or it's you know, the various environmental agencies, we need to have that coordination occur, because if there's air monitoring going on as a result of an incident, and they're not talking to each other, maybe AQMD's over here doing air monitoring, and we're over here doing air monitoring. If we're not talking, then we're losing valuable data, and we're losing our effectiveness in the mitigating that incident. As far as you know, LA County, we basically are involved with most of the refineries in one way or another. Within our jurisdiction, we implement the CalAir program for 6 refineries, not 1, 6. So when we talk about the new CalAir requirements and we talk about overseeing refineries, we have a lot of refineries that we have to deal with. There's a total of 9 refineries in LA County. The other 3 are in Torrance, El Segundo, and LA City. We have the other 6. So we're very, very embedded and very interested and very integrated into this whole process of improving things and the regulations that are going on, and where it leads us all. As an entity, we've been involved since the initial formation of the Interagency Refinery Task Force. We've been very active with these statewide groups and some of the subcommittees that have been crafting the new CalOp regulations. I co-chair the implementation work group with Clyde Trombetis from Cal OSHA, and we're looking at things like enforcement, a huge amount of staff training that's going to be necessary to implement the new regulations, the coordination of the folks from the various agencies, whether it's response or a regulatory type of action. And then when we talk about the response requirements that Paul mentioned earlier are going to come out a little bit later, if you can imagine dealing with one refinery, it's going to be pretty complicated, but dealing with all the refineries in LA County, where there's going to be a requirement for a certain frequency of drills and certain frequency of emergency planning activities, we're going to have a full plate. Finally, you know, I think, you know, like I mentioned, even the refineries that are outside of our CUPA, like El Segundo is its own CUPA. We work with El Segundo Fire Department, because if there is an event there, it's going to impact LA County jurisdiction. So we do a lot of planning with them. We're working closely with the Interagency Refinery Task Force subcommittees to work with some of these other entities. LA City's part of it also. From an operational standpoint, obviously fire departments are very good at mutual aid. If we need assistance to come in, you know, it can be gotten. Torrance is a great fire department. They have a lot of folks that are very knowledgeable about what they do, and certainly the refinery and the facilities in their city. But we all know that, you know, there's a saying, we hope for the best but prepare for the worst. So as a fire agency, we do a lot of that. Again, I want to just emphasize that we are a partner with Torrance and all the other players, AQMD, Cal OSHA, Cal EPA, and all the other CUPAs that we interact with around the state, who also have a say in the whole process and bring their unique experiences from their you know, refineries. And we have initiated through this group instant communication whenever there's a release or whenever there's an event, and we start communicating and talking to each other and seeing if it's something that somebody else has run into. So this networking and this relationship that we're building with all the agencies is, I think, going to improve things in the future. Our mission is protecting public health and safety and the environment, and this is our job one. But we obviously we want to prevent things from happening, and that's one of the things that we're spending a lot of time with, preventative type measures, and we're working with Torrance to do that. Thank you very much for the opportunity. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much. I have one question. I'm a little bit, this morning, were you here when Mr. Meir from US EPA stated that one of his findings, preliminary, was that this refinery did not have appropriate permit in order to store or dispose of the hazardous waste material? Were you here then this morning?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that is. There is a permit that a refinery such as this would have to get from the Department of Toxic Substances Control. That's a TSDF permit. When you mentioned, or somebody mentioned the Exide situation, that was the one facility in the state that was on an interim permit and didn't have a full permit. But every other TSDF facility, treatment, storage, and disposal facility, and those are typically the larger facilities in the state that do those kind of activities that I mentioned, treatment, storage, or disposal, are fully permitted, or they're going through upgrades or updates on those permits.
Is this something that your department would be issuing a local permit for the storage, handling of this?
We issue a Coupa permit, as I mentioned, and that's not something that typically the EPA gets involved with overseeing. So I would have to talk to Dan and get clarification on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions from Dr. Burke?
I have nothing. I don't know a fireman who's not a hero to somebody. When your job is to run towards danger while other people run away from it, you make a lot of friends. I have lived my entire adult life in 2 houses. They're less than 500 yards apart. In fact, for my current house, if I look up the hill, because my other house was on the top of the hill, I can look in the windows of my old house. I'm never home alone. There's always someone at home with me. But on this particular Tuesday, my kids were at school, my wife was out campaigning, and I was like Macaulay Culkin, I was home alone. It's a great neighborhood, but it's at the edge of fire area. And there was a fire that day in my area. But I hadn't paid much attention to it because fire department always handles those fires. I was standing at the kitchen sink, looking out the window over the kitchen sink. And over the top of the hill came flames about a mile long and about 50 feet, going about 50 feet in the air. And when I looked at it, I said to myself, I could die today if I stay here. Well, I obviously didn't die that day. And the fire department came, and it not only saved my house, but it saved all the houses in my neighborhood. So they were heroes, but they're not supermen. In the case of this refinery, I think they're doing everything possible that a fire department can do. But they need the help of our agency to maintain the safety of that neighborhood. So I'd like to thank these fine gentlemen for coming and testifying today, and let them know that I, as one individual from this particular agency, will be doing everything within my ability to help you guys do your job and make these citizens safe.
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Nastri said that is our last panelist before lunch, and maybe you have some instruction you'd like to give to everybody and what time we will be starting back.
We are running a bit late, and we appreciate everybody's patience and everyone's diligence. We can reconvene at 1:30. We have to allow 45 minutes for lunch, and we'll look forward to starting with our next panelist from PBF at 1:30. Thank you.
And I would like to state that we will start at exactly 1:30. So whether or not you're here or not, we're going to be starting at exactly 1:30.